We've already done a complete guide to left stick dribbling in FIFA 22. However, what we haven't covered is how to dribble with the left stick whilst you're sprinting. This is absolutely vital for getting out of sticky situations and getting away from the attacker in the defense, as well as being able to bypass the defender's tackle as you are pushing up the field with your attacker. This is my complete guide to left stick dribbling whilst sprinting in FIFA 22.
Griezmann, 3 men around him and somehow finds some space. Ronaldo, fantastic opening, the drive back.
He's made himself the tiniest bit of space.
Almost feels like a bit of a toy. Didn't really go for him. Oh! The display there is absolutely ridiculous. The Elastico on the goal line. On the goal line, the finest.
We talked about AussieFIFA. He's not here to make up the numbers.
This first segment is what not to do when dribbling while sprinting in FIFA 22, and that is chopping the left stick as you're dribbling. This actually contradicts what I taught you guys in my complete left stick dribbling tutorial, where I said you need to chop it to have a very responsive dribble with your player. It's not the case when you're sprinting. If you were to chop the stick, you will find that the player will do a very heavy touch to either side of where you pointed that left stick, and it doesn't keep in close to his feet. So that leads us into how you're meant to dribble while sprinting in FIFA 22. As I was saying briefly in the previous segment, you need to roll that stick, not chop, but roll the stick, and you will find the player will be a lot more responsive in terms of when he is dribbling while sprinting in FIFA 22. This year, EA have added in better dribbling control whilst at higher speeds in FIFA 22, and this comes with hypermotion, of course, and the 4,000 new animations that they've put into the game. What this means for us is when we're dribbling while sprinting in FIFA 22, we have a lot more control, especially if you're utilizing the technique I've just taught you in terms of rolling that stick, because it is a lot more responsive to the movements that you're pointing with the left stick. Now, what I find is if you're approaching a defender and they are coming towards you, if you were to roll that left stick either to the right or either to the left, whilst you're also watching the defender's movements, you will find that you'll be able to get past the defender very easily in certain situations, especially out on the wing, whether you want to dribble around the defender and go up the line, or even in the midfield if you feel like you might be able to burst into the space that's in behind the defender who's defending against you. You can utilize this technique, rolling that stick and sprinting whilst dribbling in FIFA 22, and will allow you to bypass the defender's tackle. And that is because of the new better dribbling while sprinting animations that EA have added in this year in FIFA 22. Sprinting towards the byline whilst dribbling with the sprint button activated. This is a very good way of actually scoring goals this year in FIFA 22. You'll find that I use this technique a lot, especially if you guys watch my gameplay videos on the No Money Spent Road to an Event. You'll find that I use the byline quite often to drive towards it, dribble along it while still holding sprint, and as I said, you have a lot more control this year, so you can go towards the byline and then roll it slightly up the line. Player will continue up the line to then obviously cut it back to the available attacker inside the box. So in these situations, what I recommend is you guys holding the sprint button, using that left stick to drive straight towards the byline, and as you get towards it, you can then start to slightly roll it so that he will turn along the byline and pass the defender who doesn't expect you to do this, and then you can get into a position where you'll be able to cut it back to an attacker who has drifted back into the 6-yard area of the box, or even on the dot shot. Utilizing left stick dribbling with momentum in the defense. What I find is if you have a through ball being put through to the attacker by your opponent, and he is attempting to get to that ball, but you know that your defender will get there before the attacker, what I highly recommend you guys doing is not going in just for a standard tackle, but literally using that sprint button, using left stick dribbling to continue with the momentum of the defender and just run straight. What I mean by that is you have an attacker who is approaching the ball, you then have a defender who is running across to intercept that ball which has been put through by the opponent. What I recommend is just running straight. Use the momentum of your defender and use the momentum of the left stick dribbling while sprinting to continue running along, intercept the ball, and run past the attacker. He expects you to make the tackle, or he expects you to take a very weak touch which isn't pacey and won't burst past him. However, if you hold sprint and you use left stick dribbling to burst past him, you'll find you'll be able to knock the ball into the space over to the side of the attacker away from him so that he can't get to the ball. And this will allow you to then continue sprinting up the line to then find a subsequent pass or indeed start a counter attack. Using sprint with left stick dribbling to burst off into certain spaces on the pitch. Now, this is actually very useful in certain situations where you want to dribble past a defender's tackle, or you want to just burst off into the available space in the midfield or on the wing or even in the box to then get a shot off, make a pass or make a play. The way you do this is, whilst you're dribbling with the left stick, you want to just tap the R2 button once, and as you do this, you need to point the left stick to the direction that you want to burst off into. And what will happen is the player will do a speed boost, knock into the space whilst he is dribbling to then continue on with the attack, burst past the defender if he is there, and obviously burst off into the space which is now available after beating that defender. It's very useful because you can maintain control of the ball with left stick dribbling whilst also utilizing sprint in these situations. So you're not risking giving the ball away just by holding sprint constantly and dribbling. You're using left stick dribbling to do normal dribbling. You're then using R2 to burst off into the space whilst maintaining relatively tight control to the ball, which will prevent the defender from getting a tackle in. Running straight. This is actually something that I use quite often. Lads, when you think about it, you're building up, you're passing a lot, you're dribbling a lot. A lot of the time, your opponent won't always expect you just to run in a straight line. This is actually a very effective attacking technique, and believe it or not, pro players use this. What it entails is you guys literally sprinting straight. That's it. And what you'll find is if there's a large enough gap in between the defense that you can burst off into with the sprint button, you will get in behind. This is something I use quite often, especially if my opponent is sleeping in the defense and doesn't quite expect me to do this. You should not abuse this technique, of course, because it will become quite predictable in your attacking game. However, I recommend utilizing this technique at least once or twice a game just to catch your opponent off guard, and you will find sometimes you may just get in behind to get that shot off. Sprint dribbling subsequent to a skill move. This is something I utilize a lot, especially with skill moves of the likes of the elastico and the reverse elastico. What you can do is you can stop the ball, perform, let's say, an elastico, and then straight after you perform that, hold sprint to burst off into the space that you've now created from the skill move. A lot of the time, after the skill move, your opponent won't expect you to continue on sprinting into the space, and that's where running straight in these situations might come in handy, like the previous segment I've taught you, because you can utilize left stick dribbling while sprinting to then burst into the space and dribble around the opponent straight after you've performed the skill move, and I find, lads, it works. Utilizing sprint straight after left stick dribbling. Now, this is similar to the previous segment where I said you can burst off by one tap the R2 button into the space, and it's a very good way of dribbling in FIFA 22. This is similar, but what I mean by this is you dribbling in and out and waiting for the opponent to commit too far either side, and once he's committed too far to one of the sides, burst off with the R2 button whilst dribbling, and you will find you will be able to get away from the opponent and continue on dribbling with the R2 button pressed in to obviously get in behind, hopefully, and get yourself into a goal scoring opportunity. Such a good technique to use, especially on the wing. You can go either side, keeping your back towards your opponent as you're dribbling. Now, if you don't know what I mean by that, go and watch my complete guide to dribbling, left stick dribbling in FIFA 22. That will deconstruct what I mean by this, but basically keeping your back towards the opponent and then bursting off into the available space once he's committed too far either to the left, either to the right. You can keep your back towards him, go towards the sideline, and then burst off up the line. It's very good for that, and you guys should definitely utilize this technique, especially for beating wingbacks in FIFA 22. But that will signal the end of the episode, lads. This was my complete guide to dribbling while sprinting in FIFA 22. I hope you found something useful, and as I said, if you haven't seen my complete left stick dribbling tutorial, go and check it out, lads. It's on the channel. It gives you a complete guide of how to dribble in FIFA 22, and I hope you guys might find something useful over there as well. But as always, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Drop a like, subscribe, and check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. I'm doing tutorials over there, lads, so go and check them out and keep in touch with me over there. Say good day, and we'll keep in touch. But as always, I hope you have a good day. I'm out. Sayonara, au revoir, adios, salam, and goodbye.